a black hotel maid answered a call in Dutch in front of a tycoon. The next day, he summoned her. Zara Thompson's cell phone buzzed as she scrubbed the floor of the opulent lobby of the Majestic Palace Hotel. Normally, she would never pick up during work hours. Rule number 1 from Supervisor Reynolds, especially for housekeeping staff. But she recognized the number. It was the university, after 6 failed attempts to secure a scholarship for her master's program in linguistics. This call could alter everything. One moment, she murmured to herself, slipping behind an elaborate marble pillar. That's when her life transformed in seconds. Zara Thompson, she answered quietly, hoping not to draw attention from guests passing through the lobby. The voice on the other end spoke in flawless Dutch. It was Professor Van Dyck from the University of Amsterdam. Zara responded instantly in the same language, her perfect diction flowing effortlessly as they discussed her application for the global program. Mijn motivatiebrief was te laat en had 2 weken geleden verzonden, Zara explained. Worried that her letter of motivation hadn't arrived on time, that's when she noticed the abrupt hush around her. She glanced up and saw Richard Carver, the billionaire owner of the hotel chain, standing a few feet away, observing her with an unmistakable look of astonishment. Next to him was Supervisor Reynolds, her eyes blazing with anger. Zara swallowed hard. Ik moet gaan. Ik bel je later. Tot ziens, she said hurriedly in Dutch, ending the call. Thompson, my office now. The supervisor's voice sliced through the air. The walk to the small administrative office in the basement felt endless. Zara sensed the stares of her colleagues, some sympathetic, others barely hiding their glee. At 29, she was the only black woman in the housekeeping department with a college degree, something Supervisor Reynolds made a point of constantly overlooking. You know the rules, Thompson. No phones during work hours, especially in public areas, Reynolds snapped as soon as the door shut. And speaking in, what was that, French? Dutch, Zara corrected instinctively, regretting it immediately. I don't care if it was gibberish. What matters is that Mr. Carver, the owner of this hotel, saw a maid neglecting her duties to chat on the phone in the lobby. The unfairness stung like venom. The white receptionists took personal calls regularly without repercussions. But Zara knew the pattern. It was always the same. I'm reassigning you to the convention center. Restrooms for the next 3 months. Maybe there you can practice as many languages as you want without shaming the hotel. Zara felt her heart plummet. The convention center meant grueling cleaning shifts after corporate events, with no extra pay. It was Reynolds' signature penalty for those who stepped out of line. You can leave and be grateful you're not fired. That night was one of the longest. In her modest apartment shared with 2 fellow nurses, Zara wept quietly, staring at her linguistics degree and international certificates framed on the chipped wall. 6 years of cleaning hotel rooms while saving for a master's, sending out resumes that never got responses after in-person interviews. The next morning, she arrived early, determined to show professionalism despite the injustice. That's when the phone at the front desk rang. Zara Thompson, called Jessica, the head receptionist. Human Resources wants you. Immediately. The HR department was on the top floor, beside the executive suites, unfamiliar territory for housekeeping staff. In the elevator, she felt invisible as always, surrounded by executives discussing multi-million-dollar deals without noticing her. Thompson, greeted the HR director as she entered. Please sit. Zara sat rigidly, bracing for the worst. Termination, most likely. Mr. Carver has requested a meeting with you, now. The owner's office was larger than her entire apartment. Richard Carver, at 45, was renowned in the business world for turning failing hotels into luxury properties. And now he was looking directly at her. Dutch, French, Italian, and Mandarin, correct? He asked bluntly, reviewing an open folder on his desk. Zara blinked, confused. How did you... My resume? I requested it from HR as soon as I heard you yesterday. Honors degree in linguistics from Georgetown, fluent in 6 languages, 2 of them Asian, and cleaning my hotel for 6 years. What Zara didn't know was that this moment was no accident. What no one in that hotel suspected was that behind that phone call in Dutch was a much larger story, an unexpected connection that would not only transform Zara's life, but expose a system of bias that had kept remarkable talent hidden behind mops and cleaning supplies. If this story of workplace prejudice stirs your outrage, sign up to discover how a simple phone call in a foreign language became the spark for a turnaround that not even the most powerful tycoon could have foreseen. For a few seconds, the office was utterly silent. Zara stood still, her mind grappling with what she'd just heard. Richard Carver knew who she was, truly knew her, not just as the unseen woman in a cleaning uniform ignored in the corridors. 6 years, Carver repeated, closing the file and folding his arms. May I ask why a Georgetown-educated linguist is scrubbing my bathrooms instead of handling international translations? Zara took a deep breath. I sent 47 resumes to the International Relations Department of this hotel. All ignored. I applied for an internal transfer 12 times, always rejected. By whom? Supervisor Reynolds and Mr. Weston, Director of Operations. Carver jotted down the names without flinching. Curious. Weston constantly complains about the shortage of multilingual staff for our international clients, he said, his eyes narrowing. Especially for Asian conferences. What Carver didn't mention was that he'd noticed a troubling pattern. 3 months earlier, he'd hired a consulting firm to quietly investigate why his East Coast hotels had high turnover rates among qualified non-white employees. Zara, I'll be direct. Tomorrow, a trade summit with Dutch and Chinese executives begins. I need someone who speaks both languages fluently and understands cultural subtleties. And, you want me to clean their rooms? Zara asked, unable to hide her sarcasm. Carver smiled faintly. I want you to be our international relations coordinator for the event. Temporarily. Salary, $5,000 a week. Starting today. Zara nearly dropped her bag. It was more than she earned in 3 months. Why me? There are hundreds of qualified candidates. Because I heard you speak Dutch like a native. Because you have the skills I need. And because I suspect something is deeply wrong in my company. An hour later, Zara stepped into the elevator with a new badge and full access to the hotel systems. On her way to HR to complete the paperwork, she ran into Supervisor Reynolds. The shock on the woman's face was priceless. Thompson, what are you doing on this floor without a uniform? Working, Miss Reynolds, International Relations Coordinator. At the direct request of Mr. Carver. Reynolds paled visibly. Impossible. You don't have the qualifications to... Georgetown. Fluent in 6 languages, including Mandarin and Dutch, Zara interrupted, keeping her tone professional. My resume has been in the hotel's files for 6 years, along with my 12 transfer requests. As the supervisor stammered explanations, Zara continued on her way. In the HR department, she found an unexpected ally, Zara Williams, a newly hired recruitment analyst who showed genuine excitement. Zara, finally, I saw your file when I started 3 months ago and couldn't understand why someone with your credentials was in housekeeping. Zara confided as she processed her transfer. I tried to talk to Weston, but he shut me down immediately. That afternoon, as she prepared for the summit in the VIP room, Zara noticed something alarming. The event documents contained incorrect and inappropriate translations in Mandarin, which could cause serious diplomatic misunderstandings with the Chinese executives. She quickly fixed the errors, redesigning the welcome materials. How did you know they were wrong? Asked Carver, who had been quietly watching her work from the doorway. The previous translation used terms that could be considered offensive and formal. Corporate Chinese, Zara explained. Whoever did this knows the basics of the language, but not the cultural nuances. Carver nodded thoughtfully. Weston assured me he hired the best translators. It cost a fortune. He hired someone without verifying their credentials, Zara corrected, pointing out a critical error in the translation of a partnership proposal. The next day, the summit began. Zara moved among the international executives with natural grace, switching seamlessly between Dutch and Mandarin, mediating discussions and forging connections that would typically take days to establish. During a break, she was approached by Weston, the director of operations, a man who had never bothered to speak to her in 6 years. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Miss Thompson, I'm impressed. Reynolds clearly misjudged your potential. Thank you, Mr. Weston. It's surprising how my resume, listing fluency in Mandarin, was overlooked, especially when the hotel spent $50,000 on subpar translation services for this summit. Weston's smile froze. There must be some misunderstanding. I never received. I have confirmation of receipt for every email over the last 6 years. Zara interrupted calmly, including those alerting you to critical errors in the translations, contracted for Asian events. What Zara didn't mention was that Zara Williams had given her access to the translation contract records. The company belonged to Weston's niece, who had no proven expertise in formal Mandarin but charged premium rates. Worse, all previous translations contained similar errors that could have cost millions in lost business. On the third day of the summit, something unexpected happened. One of the Dutch businessmen recognized Zara. "Wait, aren't you the student who wrote that brilliant article on linguistic variation in global business, published in the Journal of Applied Linguistics?" Zara confirmed, surprised to be recognized. "I've cited your work at 2 conferences, the man exclaimed, calling colleagues over to meet her. Carver watched from a distance, noticing how Weston seemed increasingly uneasy. What the director didn't realize was that while he smiled and talked, Zara was weaving a web that would expose not just isolated errors but an entire system of ingrained bias and corruption that had suppressed talents like hers while inflated. Contracts went to unqualified people. What no one at the Majestic Palace Hotel realized was that the black maid who answered a call in Dutch wasn't there by chance. Behind that seemingly simple department transfer, a plan was unfolding that would not only change Zara's life but reveal a system of discrimination affecting dozens of employees. The question was no longer whether she could prove what had happened, but how devastating the truth would be when it surfaced. On the morning of the 4th day of the summit, the Majestic Palace Hotel was alive with energy. Zara's efforts had generated preliminary contracts that surpassed all expectations. As she walked through the lobby, she noticed something troubling. Weston was escorting a young woman, clearly anxious, to the executive elevators. "Miss Weston, your Mandarin translation is sufficient," he said in a controlled tone. "No need for concern." Zara recognized the last name immediately. The young woman was carrying a folder marked Final Translation, Master Contract. A quick glance as she passed confirmed her suspicions. The same critical errors from before persisted in the text. "Mr. Carver needs to see this," Zara thought, hurrying to the CEO's office. Carver was reviewing documents when she entered unannounced. "Zara, what's going on?" "Weston is replacing my correct translations with flawed versions done by his niece," Zara explained, showing him screenshots on her phone. "And I have proof this has been happening for years." Carver stood abruptly. "Are you absolutely certain?" "I have everything documented. Plus, I found records of inflated payments to her translation company, 3 times above market rate, while qualified candidates like me were systematically rejected." As they spoke, Zara Williams from HR rushed in. "Mr. Carver, sorry to interrupt." "But I found something you need to see right away," she said, handing him a folder. "Hiring records for the last 5 years. A consistent pattern of rejecting qualified non-white candidates, especially women." Carver flipped through the documents, his face hardening with each page. "The outside investigation detected something, but this is systematic." At that moment, Weston entered the office without knocking, interrupting the conversation. "Richard, the Dutch are ready to sign, but they're asking about some inconsistencies in the translations. Thompson must have mixed something up." The silence that followed was frigid. Carver walked slowly to the door and closed it. "Thomas, I'm seeing payment. Records for $50,000. For incompetent translations while we have qualified employees scrubbing bathrooms," Carver said, his voice dangerously calm. "Any explanation?" Weston paled visibly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "We hired the best—" "Your niece, Thomas," Carver interrupted. "Zero experience in formal Mandarin. She has a certification, fake," Zara finished, placing a printed email on the table. "I just confirmed with Peking University. They never certified Ashley Weston." Weston shot Zara a look of pure venom. "You're nobody. A maid who thinks she can play with the big players." "PhD in applied linguistics from Georgetown," Zara corrected calmly, "with 6 international publications, all in the HR files you've ignored repeatedly." "Thomas," Carver interjected, "I've called an emergency board meeting in 30 minutes. By then, I want your resignation letter on my desk." "You can't be serious." Weston laughed nervously. "Because of this... Choose your next words with extreme care," Carver warned. 2 hours later, the executive auditorium was packed. All managers, supervisors, and directors had been summoned urgently. In the front row, Dutch and Chinese executives waited curiously. Reynolds, the housekeeping supervisor, looked bewildered sitting next to other department heads. Carver took the stage, Zara at his side. "Today, We uncovered a systematic scheme of bias and nepotism that has cost this company millions, he announced gravely. For years, managers like Thomas, Weston, and Sarah Reynolds have enforced unofficial policies that harmed not only our employees but our bottom line. A presentation began behind him, displaying charts comparing employee qualifications to positions, hiring and rejection statistics by race and gender, and overpriced contracts linked to managers' family members. Ms. Thompson, whom some of you knew only as a maid, saved our company from a diplomatic and financial disaster this week, Carver continued, by correcting translations that would have cost millions in contractual misunderstandings. The Asian executives nodded in recognition, some clapping quietly. As a result of this investigation, Thomas Weston has been terminated for cause, Carver announced. Sarah Reynolds is suspended while we complete our investigation into her involvement, and effective immediately, we are implementing a full audit of all hiring and promotions over the past 5 years. The room fell into stunned silence. Reynolds, now ashen, stared at the floor. And finally, Carver smiled slightly, I am pleased to announce that Dr. Zara Thompson is being named our new Global Director of Internal Communications, overseeing all multilingual operations. The auditorium erupted in applause, some hesitant, many enthusiastic, especially from the housekeeping crew in the back, who clapped with tears in their eyes. As she left the stage, Zara noticed Weston being escorted out by security. His face twisted in impotent fury. As he passed Zara, he muttered, "You won't last a month." Zara smiled serenely. In the pocket of her newly acquired blazer was a recording device, the same one that had captured every threat and prejudiced comment Weston had whispered over the past few days as he desperately tried to cover his tracks. That night, in her new office overlooking the city, Zara finally allowed herself to cry. They weren't tears of sorrow, but of profound catharsis. 6 years of scrubbing corridors while her potential was ignored. 6 years of your resume must have been misplaced, and maybe you're not a good cultural fit. She picked up the phone and called her mother, who had sacrificed everything for her education. "I did it, Mom," she said simply, her voice trembling. What no one at the Majestic Palace Hotel could have predicted that day was that the real transformation was just beginning. While some executives were still processing the collapse of old privileges, others were already grasping the inevitable truth. True talent, when finally unleashed, not only corrects past wrongs but redefines the future. The fall of Weston and his biased scheme was only the first chapter in a complete overhaul that would shake the foundations, not just of that hotel but of the entire American hospitality industry. And it all started with a simple phone call in Dutch. 6 months had passed since that pivotal day when Zara answered a call in Dutch in the lobby of the Majestic Palace Hotel. What had once been an isolated case of personal justice had turned into a quiet revolution in the American hospitality industry. Zara's office on the 32nd floor now overlooked all of Manhattan. A discreet plaque on the oak door read, Dr. Zara Thompson, Vice President of Diversity and International Relations. The salary was 5 figures monthly, not annual, but the real power lay beyond the title or financial reward. Restructuring committee assembled in waiting. Dr. Thompson, announced Zara Williams, now her executive assistant and close friend. All regional managers are on the conference call. Zara nodded, taking a deep breath before entering the conference room where Richard Carver and the board of directors awaited. It was the day of the final presentation of the Hidden Talents program, a personal initiative Zara had developed to identify and promote qualified employees systematically, overlooked across the hotel chain. The results of the pilot program have exceeded all expectations, Zara began, presenting the numbers on the screen. In just 6 months, we identified 147 employees with skills in languages, finance, management, and technology who were in roles far below their capabilities. 83% of them Black, Latino, or from other minority groups. Carver nodded approvingly. The program had been his first demand when accepting the promotion, not just fixing her own situation, but transforming the entire system. Most impressive, Zara continued, is the financial impact. Outsourced translation costs are down 78%. International client satisfaction is up 42%, and our diversity ratings are now at the top of the industry. All this while providing real opportunities to people already on our payroll across the country. Sarah Reynolds watched the conference broadcast from a small hotel in California. After an extensive investigation, she had escaped termination by accepting a demotion and transfer. Now she managed laundry at a second-rate property, a daily humiliation for someone who had once rejected talent based on bias. The next expansion of the program will include an internal mentoring system, Zara explained. Each promoted talent commits to identifying and supporting other employees with potential. Thomas Weston was not attending the conference. After his dismissal, no luxury hotel would hire him. Allegations of systematic bias and embezzlement had permanently tarnished his name in the industry. Rumor had it he was now working as a night manager at a roadside motel in Arizona. His niece, Ashley, had had to return all her inflated payments, complete a professional ethics program, and was now studying Mandarin, ironically, with a scholarship created by the Carver Foundation for Inclusive Language Education. In closing, Zara said, turning directly to the camera broadcasting to all properties in the chain, "I want to share something personal." She paused, letting the silence fill the room. "When I was little, my mother worked as a maid in a hotel like this one. She had a college degree but never got a job in her field. She always told me and Zara, no matter how much they try to make you feel invisible, your worth doesn't depend on their recognition." Zara took a deep breath, maintaining her composure. "My mother passed away believing some doors would never open for people like us. She never lived to see this moment, to see that her sacrifice was worth it." Across the room, several executives, many newly promoted through the program, wiped away tears discreetly. The true power of a company isn't how much it earns, but the potential it unleashes. For decades, the hospitality industry, like so many others, buried extraordinary talent under service uniforms, assuming people of certain colors, accents, or backgrounds were only fit for invisible roles. Carver stood applauding, followed by the entire room and hundreds of employees watching remotely. Later that day, Zara received an envelope in her office. Inside was a postcard from Amsterdam and a letter from the University of Applied Linguistics offering her a position as a visiting professor. Professor Van Dyke, who had made that fateful call in Dutch 6 months earlier, had followed her meteoric rise. Ironically, Zara thought as she looked out the window at the city, "I have Reynolds to thank for punishing me that day. If she had just given me a warning, I might still be cleaning the same rooms, my degree gathering dust." The next day, Zara officially launched a scholarship fund for hotel employees and their children. Funded partly by her new salary, the first beneficiary was the daughter of her former housekeeping colleague, who dreamed of studying hotel management. What began as a phone call in Dutch had sent ripples far beyond that hotel, far beyond that industry. The message was clear: talent exists everywhere. What's lacking are opportunities and recognition. True justice isn't just punishing those who discriminate, but rebuilding systems so bias has nowhere to hide. Zara's sweetest revenge wasn't watching her adversaries fall, but seeing hundreds of people like her finally rise. If this story moved you and made you reflect on how silent prejudice can stifle extraordinary talent, leave your comment and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories about people who turned injustice into platforms for real change. After all, the greatest lesson Zara teaches us is that true greatness isn't about overcoming barriers alone, but ensuring the doors stay open for everyone who comes after you.